Hello, my name is Jay and welcome back to Jay.ADHD Writing Lessons, a show where I am sharing my advice for writers with ADHD. I'm not a doctor or any kind of counsellor. This is just tips and tricks that I've picked up through personal experience and talking to other ADHD writers. If you want some more medically sanctioned information on ADHD, I'll be linking some charities in the description as always. If at any point this video becomes upsetting to you, I would recommend just clicking off and doing something to look after yourself, and I'll be leaving links to a couple of mental health charities in the description in case you need more urgent help. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. This week we are talking about how to finish big projects. When I realized I should probably make an episode on how to finish things, my immediate reaction was panic. I am not great at finishing things. My life is built on a crumbling tower of works in progress. Sitting in the corner of my room right now, there is a jumper that I'm knitting for my cousin that was supposed to be a Christmas present. It's currently March. All I have to do is like the sleeve cuff and the neck cuff. It's about 2 hours of knitting. For some reason, I just haven't done it, and it's just sitting there, staring at me. I'm not great at finishing things. Which is a little bit worrying because for my final university project, I have to submit a piece of writing that's 20,000 words long. That's a lot of words. How do I keep it from becoming another half-finished jumper? But wait, if I've uploaded this video, that means I finished this project. And not only have I finished this project, I finished 5 smaller projects that make up the larger project. And while I've been working on them, I haven't been worried that I wouldn't finish. I've been worried that they'd be bad, but normally when I'm writing, I'm worried about whether I'll finish or not. So maybe I do know how to finish things. What makes this different from all of the unfinished projects? And can I reverse engineer some solutions to fix my life? Or at least, finish my degree. The first step towards finishing something is to know what your finish point actually looks like and all of the steps that lead up to it. So for these videos, I know I want to make 5 videos, which means I have to research, I have to plan 5 scripts, I have to write 5 scripts, I have to film 5 videos, I have to edit 5 videos, and I have to upload 5 videos. I have a clear goal in mind. This stage tends to be easier if it's a project that you're working on for school or for your job, because generally someone else will give you the goal and the deadline for it. If you're working on something just for yourself, make sure before you start you have a clear objective in mind. That could be a certain word count that you want to hit by a certain date or a certain stage of novel completion. Just make sure you know what it is that you're working towards. Also, this might sound kind of weird to say, but don't feel like your goals need to be huge. I'll talk about this some more later, but people with ADHD aren't always great at estimating the amount of time that things take to complete, and it's very easy to accidentally set yourself up with a writing goal that is literally impossible to achieve. Sometimes it can be better to go with a smaller goal that you're confident in your ability to do, rather than setting yourself up to do 3,000 words a day when you're currently writing 0 words a day. I don't want to sound harsh, but you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. Another important reason that I've been able to finish this project is because of deadlines, plural. Instead of just one big deadline, I have lots of smaller continuous deadlines. I committed to uploading 1 video a week, so it was literally impossible to leave everything to the last minute. I'm not proud of this, but I'm pretty sure that if my task had just been to produce 5 videos by X date, I would have done it in a dumb way and just, done them all in the last week. But a weekly upload schedule made doing that inconceivable. It also naturally gave me some deadlines for different elements of the project, like Monday, Tuesday, and occasionally Wednesday are filming days. So I need to spend the weekend before finalizing the script. And then after we film, the natural next step is editing. I'll have some chunks to edit and they need to be done by a certain date so I can pass them on to my editor. And then once I'm done with the editing, I go back to the scripting. It's a lot of work. That's why we took a week off. While I've been making these videos, I've just naturally had clear deadlines for small, achievable chunks of work. So that's something to keep in mind when you're planning out a big project. So we chunkify the task, we give ourselves mini deadlines, and then success? Not quite. We have 2 issues to consider here. Number 1 is how we chunkify the task, And number 2 is, how do we hold ourselves accountable for those mini deadlines? One way to work out mini deadlines for yourself is just with maths. So you take how many days you have until your final deadline and how many words you have, and then you divide the amount of words by the amount of days. So if you're doing NaNoWriMo, you'll have 50,000 words in 30 days, divide one by the other and you get 1,666. I don't know if that's correct. I didn't do it in a calculator. Something in my brain told me that was the right answer and I don't know if it is. So if it's incorrect, my editor will editor dunce's cap onto my head if that's not too complicated. This can be a good strategy when you're working on a draft where all you're thinking about is writing, but it can be a bit of an oversimplification for a big project. There's a lot that goes into the writing process that is more complicated than just getting words down. There's editing and planning and redrafting and workshopping and 8 million other things that you could very easily forget about if all you're focused on is word count. When it comes to complicated multi-stage projects, I'm not great at figuring out what an achievable chunk of work actually looks like. This can be a common issue for people with ADHD because our perception of time isn't always the greatest, so we very commonly misjudge how long things take. Sometimes we think something's going to take 3 hours, but it actually takes 5 minutes. Or other times we think something will take 20 minutes, but it actually takes 6 hours, which when you're 2 days off a deadline is a pretty deadly mistake to make. Do you see the suffering in my eyes? You see it? There are ways that you can strengthen these skills. I will link up here or here, one of those sides, a 3-part series by How to ADHD where she talks with Eric Tivers about scheduling and time management. But I would like to share another strategy with you, which is asking people for help. During this project, I've been working with a friend, my elusive editor who is behind the camera right now, and I've been working out my schedule week by week with her. And then last semester, I was working on a big essay and I used to meet up every Monday morning with one of my tutors where we talk through some goals for the week. Unlike me, both of them are pretty good at judging the passage of time, so they can tell me if I'm probably underestimating how long something will take, or if I'm overestimating a task, or if there's something major coming up that I've just completely forgotten about and will bite me in the bum later. Obviously it varies from week to week, but generally when I was working on my essay, I'd have one big goal for the week and then sort of 2 or 3 smaller tasks, and I would write them on post-it notes and stick them on my wall, because if they go in a planner, I will close that thing and forget that they exist. I am aware that I'm in a pretty privileged position to be able to get this kind of support. I mean, not everyone who watches these videos is in education, and I'm sure a lot of the people who are in education just aren't getting the help that they need. Still, there are other ways that you can get this kind of support. If you can afford to pay them, there is something called an ADHD coach who, amongst other things, you can talk through your long-term goals and plans with, and they can help you with that. There's also something called an accountability buddy, which is a person who you talk through your goals with and then you'd meet regularly and keep each other accountable for them. If you have someone in your life with similar goals to you or similar projects, you could maybe talk to them and see if they'd be willing to have this kind of accountability buddy relationship. If there's no one in your life who fits the bill, then there are plenty of people online who are looking for accountability buddies. There's Reddit groups where you could post your interest, or you could try some dedicated ADHD forums. Hopefully an accountability buddy will be able to keep track of you and notice if you're planning too much, or if you haven't planned thoroughly enough, or if you're lagging behind, and the two of you can keep each other on track. Hopefully with your accountability buddy's help, you'll be able to chop your work into little bite-sized chunks. But now we have the issue of how do you keep yourself accountable for these chunks when there aren't necessarily consequences for going over your internal deadlines. That was different for this project because meeting the weekly deadline was pretty important, but on something like an essay or my 20,000 word project coming up, I wish it was 2,000. But with something like an essay or my 20,000 word piece that's coming up, there's not really a consequence for missing a deadline up until the big deadline at the end. And the big deadline at the end exists in the beautiful, fuzzy, nebulous land of later until it very abruptly enters the death zone of now. For me, it helps to keep a visual reminder of the passage of time. Like calendars work a lot better for me than planners do, because if I have a planner, you don't have to close it and I have to remember to open it again, to look at it, and That's a lot of steps. I have my lovely wall calendar, which I mark all of my deadlines on with big exclamation points, and then I try to remember to cross off each day as it passes, just to keep reminding me that time is moving and deadlines continue to approach. Also, remember to reward yourself when you do meet a deadline. This is another instance where other people's help can come in handy, because say if I got a chocolate bar that I wasn't gonna eat until I finished filming, but I just kept it with me, then, you know.
Jay, what do you have? Jay, no, Jay!
This is not gonna survive until the end of filming. However, if I give it to my editor, I'm not gonna see that for a little while. The final stage of actually finishing a project is forming a habit and actually sitting down to do the work every day. This is by far the hardest part of the process, but I think some people act like it isn't. If you have ADHD or any kind of mental health problem, you've probably had someone at some point in your life get frustrated with you and tell you to just sit down and do the work. It's not that hard. But it is that hard. And we know it shouldn't be that hard, but it just is. One day I will make a whole video on how to build habits. I need about a year's more character development until I can do that though. So in the meantime, hopefully everything else that I've shared in these videos can help. Give yourself a space to write, warm up with free writing to build your confidence, give yourself incrementally small goals and keep rewarding yourself and tracking your progress. Organize your notes in a system that makes sense to you and is easy for you to use. Ask for help whenever you need to, even if it feels like something you shouldn't have to get help for. That could be having someone sit in the same room as you while you write an email, or having a friend look over your schedule to make sure it, works with the linear passage of time. Figure out what an achievable goal is for you and don't be ashamed of what it is. If you're aiming to write 2,000 words a day because you Googled how many words a day should I write, and that's what came up, but you keep tapping out at 200, just make 200 your goal. There is nothing wrong with that. And maybe most importantly, remember that your work doesn't disappear just because you have to take a day, a week, or even years away from it. There are times when the ADHD will just win and you won't achieve the things that you want to, and that is okay. It doesn't cancel out everything that you've already done, and the work you've done will still be waiting for you when you get back. As always, I'll give you a little recap of all the things that I've covered this week. Number 1, know what your end point is and the steps that lead up to it. Number 2, give yourself a realistic amount of work. Number 3, split the work into achievable chunks with internal deadlines. Number 4, find someone to talk through your plans with that you trust so they can make sure that you're scheduling wisely. Number 5, keep rewarding yourself for the deadlines you meet. And number 6, never be afraid to ask for help when you need it. And that's it. That's going to be the last episode of jay.adhdwriter for a little while. I do hope to continue doing these, just they won't be part of a university project. So I'll be able to swear in the next episode. I don't know when I'll see you next, but if you have anything that you'd really like me to cover, you can let me know in the comments or you can email me. You can also find me on social media if you want to keep in touch. I have really genuinely enjoyed making these and I do want to continue doing them. And anyone who's left a nice comment has, really made me happy. So I think it's time for me to get my chocolate bar, Harriet.
Yeet!
Wow!
Oh, God.
Cut!
Ladies.
Are we ready? Mood.